Hello students! Where we left off in the last video was about imperialism and the three big reasons for imperialism. And if you remember, reason one was nationalism, reason two was the demand for new markets and for raw materials, and reason three was just a feeling of racial and cultural superiority that made Europeans and Americans go out and try to conquer the other countries of the world. Today, we're going to keep talking about this, and then in the next video, we'll get into specifics about specific areas. So, first, the next definition that you'll need to know is nationalism and militarism. We kind of had touched on this a little bit already in the last video, but by the mid-1800s, European countries were competing on the world stage for power. And what they would do is they would try to get military bases in other countries around the world to enhance their own country's cultural prestige. New markets was something we touched on in the last video, but we're going to talk a little bit more about it today. Raw materials were needed to feed the factories that had grown from the Industrial Revolution. This is a map of the world, and these are the different big products that or raw material products that you could get from Africa. Remember, we said rubber, there was also copper and gold. So as European countries that had the factories took over parts of Africa, they could now get access to rubber, copper, and gold that they could then use in their factories to make more expensive and better products that they would sell. India was known for growing both cotton and jute. Jute is a type of fiber that could be used for bags, clothing, shoes, cloths, things like that. There were also crops like bananas, oranges, melons, other exotic items that people were willing to pay for. So if you were a European country and you could take over another country that had bananas, suddenly you have the monopoly on that and can sell that. Other Europeans forced new markets to buy their stuff. So essentially they could take a country over and then they could say you can only buy stuff from our country, essentially enriching that European or American country even further. Another nasty thing we should talk about is social Darwinism. And this was the thought process. It is definitely racist and culturally racist, but here it was. Europeans would look around themselves and say, hey, we are successful. They would say we're industrialized, we're Christian, and in some cases we're white. And so the big idea is it's our duty to lead these backwards and savages to be more like us. Again, this is totally disrespectful of the cultures that they were taking over, but this was a common mentality of the time period. And it's important that we understand what this mentality was. Social Darwinism is the survival of the fittest also applies to people and cultures. The white Europeans at the time believed that they were the fittest cultures and therefore deserved to take over everyone else. This is again this concept of social Darwinism, that only the strong survive. But in this case, they thought, hey, if we're a stronger country and we take over a weaker country, then everybody in our country was stronger. We know this to not be true today, but this was something that they believed in back then. There were different degrees of imperialism, and we're going to go over the three big types of imperialism. First was the colony, where a country would take over another country and rule them directly. They would take the entire country over and rule every aspect of it. So the people of their own country couldn't make any decisions unless the motherland or the mother country made the decisions for them. Number two was a protectorate. In this case, a country would take over another country, but they would let them have their own government. The policies and political affairs were just guided by the home country. So essentially it would be like if I took over your house, but I still let you do whatever you wanted in your house as long as you just checked in with me from time to time. Little less aggressive than the first type, which is the colony. The last type is called the sphere of influence, and it's when a region or country just has exclusive trading rights with that country. So what that looks like is basically when all of South America, if you were going to trade with South America, you had to go through the United States. Now, how that helps the country like the United States is that essentially they could make the prices much higher because everything went through the United States. It's like almost forcing a middleman into the equation. So there were a lot of popular island countries that were controlled by a European country. And so the only way that goods and services could get to those island countries was through the European country. Essentially, the Europeans were just making money off of this. So some undertone that you should see right now is that imperialism, although it helped shape the world and the world's countries, it wasn't a good or healthy thing at all for most of the world. It just enriched the European countries, it enriched the United States, and it made other countries poorer.